I want you to try a mental experiment. Imagine walking into a Starbucks right now. You are wearing a pair of jeans, sneakers, and a plain white t-shirt. You order a coffee. You sit down. You open your laptop. Nobody looks at you twice. You are dressed normally. In fact, you are dressed like 90% of the population. Now, take that exact same outfit and travel back in time to the year 1905. You walk down the street in New York City, suddenly women are fainting, men are shouting, a police officer blows his whistle and tackles you to the ground. You are arrested for indecent exposure. Why? Because in 1905, wearing a t-shirt in public was the equivalent of walking around in your boxer shorts today. It wasn't clothing, it was underwear. It was something you wore to absorb sweat. It was something you hid under 3 layers of wool. Showing it to the world was a sign that you were either incredibly poor, drunk, or had completely lost your mind. So, how did we get here? How did a piece of cheap cotton underwear destroy the suit and tie? How did a Hollywood actor named Marlon Brando ruin the reputation of polite society with one tight sleeve? And how did the humble t-shirt become the most powerful political billboard in human history? Today, we are stripping down the history of the most popular garment on earth. This is the story of the t-shirt. Welcome to Behind the Seams. To truly appreciate the luxury of a soft cotton t-shirt, you have to understand the absolute misery that came before it. For most of the 19th century, men didn't wear separate tops and bottoms. They wore the union suit. Imagine a red or white knitted jumpsuit that covers you from your ankles to your wrists. Now imagine it is made of itchy, heavy wool. Now imagine wearing that in July. The union suit was a torture device disguised as clothing. It was designed to keep you warm in winter, which was great. But in the summer, it was a sweat trap. And going to the bathroom? That was a logistical puzzle involving a drop seat. Basically a flap on your butt held closed by buttons. If a button popped off, well, you had a draft in places you didn't want to draft. But the revolution didn't start in a fashion house in Paris. It started in the coal mines and factories of America. In the late 1800s, laborers were dying of heat exhaustion. They looked at their union suits and decided to hack the system. They took scissors and cut the suits in half. They separated the top from the bottom so they could tuck the shirt in or take it off completely. It wasn't a fashion statement. It was rudimentary air conditioning. Around 1898, the Cooper Underwear Company, which later became Jockey, noticed this. They launched a product called the Bachelor's Friend. Why that name? Because it had no buttons. It was a stretchy crew neck shirt that you could pull over your head. The marketing slogan was simple: no safety pins, no buttons, no needle, no thread. For a single man who didn't know how to sew a button back onto his shirt, this was a miracle, but it was still strictly underwear. The real turning point came with the United States Navy. In 1913, just before World War I, the Navy was looking for a solution. Sailors on battleships and submarines were working in insane heat. The boiler rooms were over 100 degrees. Wool uniforms were impossible. So the Navy officially issued the lightweight short-sleeve undershirt. They called it the Gob shirt. It was revolutionary for 3 reasons. Material: it was made of cotton, which dried much faster than wool. Color: it was bright white. Why? Discipline. If a sailor's shirt was dirty, his commanding officer could see it from a mile away. It forced them to do laundry. Shape: when laid flat, the shirt formed a perfect shape of the letter T, hence the name. When World War I ended, Millions of American soldiers came home wearing these t-shirts. They wore them to do yard work. They wore them to fix the car. They wore them to drink beer on the porch. But there was a strict social rule. You never leave the property. A t-shirt was backyard clothes. If you were going to the store, or church, or the bank, you put on a collared shirt. Wearing a t-shirt to dinner was like wearing a towel to dinner. It just wasn't done until Hollywood decided to break the rules. Hollywood has a massive influence on fashion, but usually it promotes products. In 1934, Hollywood nearly destroyed the t-shirt industry. The movie was called It Happened One Night. It starred Clark Gable, the biggest heartthrob of the era. In one famous scene, Gable is undressing in a hotel room. He takes off his dress shirt and reveals his bare chest. He wasn't wearing an undershirt. The audience gasped. It was scandalous. It was sexy, but for the knitting mills of America, it was a disaster. Legend has it that undershirt sales dropped by 75% overnight. Men across America thought, if Clark Gable doesn't need an undershirt, neither do I. It's cooler to go commando. The t-shirt was on the ropes. It needed a new hero, a hero who wouldn't just take it off, but who would keep it on. Fast forward to 1951, the movie, A Streetcar Named Desire. The star, Marlon Brando. There has never been a more important moment in the history of menswear. Marlon Brando played Stanley Kowalski, a rough, brutish, working-class character. And for almost the entire movie, he wore a tight-fitted white t-shirt, and he looked incredible. But it wasn't the polite, loose underwear of the Navy. The costume designers actually washed Brando's shirts multiple times and stitched them tighter in the back to make them hug his muscles. Brando was sweaty. He was raw. He was animalistic. Suddenly, the t-shirt stopped being underwear. It became sex. Then came 1955. James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause. White tee, blue jeans, red jacket, cigarette. This was the nail in the coffin of the suit and tie. The t-shirt became the official uniform of the bad boy. If you wore a suit, you were part of the system. You were your dad. If you wore a t-shirt, you were dangerous. You were young. You were a rebel. Schools banned him. Principals sent kids home for wearing underwear to class. But you cannot stop a cultural tsunami. By the end of the 1950s, the t-shirt was officially outerwear. So, the t-shirt was popular. But it was still just plain white. It was a blank canvas waiting for an artist. In the 1960s, a technological breakthrough changed everything. An inventor named Michael Vasilantone developed a new kind of ink called plastisol. Before this, if you printed ink on cotton, it would wash out or crack after a few days. Plastisol was durable. It stretched with the fabric. Suddenly, you could print anything on a shirt and it would stay there forever. This collided with the cultural explosion of the 1960s. The tie-dye movement arrived. The t-shirt became a psychedelic trip. Then came the protest movement. Vietnam, civil rights, feminism. People realized that a t-shirt was a wearable billboard. You didn't have to say a word. You could walk down the street and your chest would scream your politics. Make love, not war. Peace. The t-shirt became the loudest voice in the room. In the 1970s, the t-shirt evolved again. It became a tribal token. Rock and roll bands realized the power of merchandise. The Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, the Ramones. They started printing their logos on black tees. This changed the psychology of dressing. Wearing a band tee wasn't just about fashion. It was a signal. If you saw someone wearing a Ramones shirt, you knew instantly, that is my person. We like the same music, we hate the same things. It was a way to find your tribe in a crowded room, and it became big business. In the 70s, concert tickets were cheap. Bands made their real money selling shirts. Today, merchandise is a multi-billion-dollar industry, but it started in the back of vans in the 1970s. But the crown jewel of t-shirt history happened in 1977. New York City was in trouble. Crime was high, the city was bankrupt, and tourists were scared. The Department of Commerce hired a graphic designer named Milton Glaser to create a logo to save the city's image. Milton sketched something on a napkin in the back of a taxi. 3 letters and a symbol, I heart and Y. They printed it on plain white t-shirts. It became a global phenomenon. It is arguably the most copied piece of graphic design in history. That one t-shirt proved that a piece of cotton could change the reputation of an entire city. It turned every tourist into a brand ambassador. Which brings us to the modern era. In the 1980s and 90s, the t-shirt went corporate. Brands like Calvin Klein and Armani started putting their logos on chests. Suddenly, you weren't advertising a band or a political cause. You were advertising a corporation, and you were paying them for the privilege. Then came Silicon Valley. Steve Jobs with his black mock turtleneck, Mark Zuckerberg with his gray Brunello Cucinelli t-shirt. The message shifted again. In the 1950s, wearing a t-shirt meant you were a rebel. In the 2000s, wearing a t-shirt meant you were the boss. It was the ultimate power move. If you wear a suit, it implies you work for someone. You have to impress a client. If you wear a plain t-shirt to a board meeting, it implies you are so powerful, so rich and so important that you don't care what anyone thinks. Fashion houses caught on. Today, brands like Gucci, Balenciaga, and Dior sell plain white cotton t-shirts for $500, $700, sometimes $1,000. Think about the irony. A garment that was invented because it was cheap, disposable underwear for coal miners, is now a status symbol that costs more than a car payment. So, the next time you open your drawer and pull out that faded, comfortable cotton tee, stop for a second. Look at it. It's not just a shirt. It is a history of labor rights. It is a history of the U.S. Navy. It is a symbol of Hollywood rebellion. It is a political billboard, and it is the most democratic garment ever invented. Kings wear them, billionaires wear them, toddlers wear them. It is the only piece of clothing that truly belongs to everyone. From the sweaty boiler rooms of battleships to the red carpets of Met Gala, the t-shirt has seen it all. And the best part, it never asks you to sew a button. This was behind the seams. Thank you for watching this deep dive. Hit that subscribe button if you want more hidden histories. And tell me in the comments, do you fold your t-shirts or hang them? Or do you just throw them in a pile on the chair? Be honest. See you in the next one.